Hey everybody, my name is Sean and welcome back to another episode of Underground Comic Review. Today I will be reviewing American Splendor number 2. American Splendor is a comic book written by Harvey Pekar that features art by absolute legends in the underground comic field, such as Robert Crumb. It was published annually by Harvey himself from 1976 through 1993 when Dark Horse Comics took over and published somewhat sporadically 15 issues over 9 years. Then in 2006 Vertigo published 8 issues over 3 years. The comic is mostly autobiographical stories from Harvey himself. Sometimes he goes by a different moniker, but any reader with common sense can tell that Harvey Pekar isn't fooling anybody. The stories are almost all everyday nothingness, such as getting groceries or trying to find something to do on the weekend. It's similar to Seinfeld in the way that it's about nothing. In fact, if I told you the plots and you didn't know anything about Harvey Pekar and his storytelling style, you'd think it would be the world's most boring comic ever written. But I'll try my hardest to make it sound as interesting as I think it is. Alright, let's start this review. The cover is a collaboration between Gary Dumm and Greg Budget. I really enjoy the art style and its semi-realism. The color choice is real nice too, with the blues really giving you the feeling of a bitter cold night. The joke is great too, it reminds me of some of the conversations I've had with my friends. It also really gives you an idea into the attitude of Harvey and the themes that are contained within. Also in the corner it mentions that this issue now features 60 pages, compared to the first issue's 52 pages. I'm only going to be going over 2 of the stories because, well, it's a fairly long book, and 2, I really think it's worth searching it out yourself, because I think this book is well worth it, and I don't want to spoil everything for you. Alright, first up is a comic many of my record pickup fans might relate to, titled Jivin' with Jack the Bellboy as he goes about hustlin' slides. In the story, our main character is obsessed about collecting every jazz record ever cut, but it's much to his detriment. He spends so much money on records he has to be extra frugal about such things as food and taking out girls. One night he's considering how much money he has to spend on an upcoming record auction and realizes that to get the cash, he's going to have to hustle some pop albums at work. He works at a large government building with lots of different people that he sees each day that he can sell records to. So he calls up a friend to strike a deal with to trade some doubles for some pop records, which goes through without a hitch. Now with records in tow, he's off to work to see who he can sell to. He goes about his ways and makes some sales, but then after lunch his boss asks him into his office where he mentions that his boss has brought his attention to Jack the Bellboy's record hustling, which he had previously known about but chose to ignore. But now that his boss has said something, he needs our main character to stop. Once hearing this, he is visibly shaken and is frantically trying to think of ways to sell the remaining albums. The comic then ends with a narration bubble citing, "Winners never quit." I really enjoyed this comic and its story I think everybody can relate to. Even if you're not into records, I'm pretty sure everybody's gotten into trouble at work for doing something they weren't supposed to do. The art by Robert Crumb is great and is done in his usual style. I particularly think that the background really gives a good illusion of being in a large office building. The next story I find really relatable too. That's one of the things I like about Harvey Pekar stories. I've always found them relatable and I've been able to find things in common in situations from my own life. The next story is about when you have an acquaintance or friend and you know that you have different political or social ideals, but you chose to ignore that and just chalk it up to different strokes of different folks. But then the person says something so surprising and awful that you can't look at it in the same way. This particular story centers around 1970s Kent State shootings and Harvey and another employee, Mr. Lucarelli. They have a disagreement over the politics surrounding the situation. Harvey treats it as a normal debate, but Harvey is shocked when Mr. Lucarelli says that the people deserve to be shot. Harvey is positively stunned by this, and after walking away he thinks, how can he ever talk to Mr. Lucarelli again? Throughout the rest of the day, Harvey pays no attention to Mr. Lucarelli, who notices this and is feeling quite hurt and confused. At the end of the day, he approaches Harvey and asks him if he really is still mad at him for what he said earlier that day. After a brief exchange of words, Mr. Lucarelli asked if Harvey could just forget it and go back to normal. Harvey says, yeah, sure, but by the way his face looks you can tell that that's not happening, as Mr. Lucarelli is left in the parking lot, still looking hurt and confused. The art is by Brian Bam, and I find interesting, as while it comes off as simple and slightly messy, it also has a realistic and complicated quality that comes out once you take a deeper look. And last up, we have the back cover, which features various street toughs from Buffalo and Spanish conquistadors. And just like the front cover, the art is by Greg Budget and Gary Dumm. All in all, I think this is a great comic. Despite the mundanity of the plot, I find it quite moving and deep, very deep. I also find it really fast paced, and I found myself turning pages really quickly. I definitely recommend picking this up and digging right in, because if you're anything like me, you will enjoy it cover to cover. Well, that does it for another episode of Underground Comic Review. Hope you liked what you saw. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because I'd love to talk about this stuff with you, and, well, I'd love you to subscribe so you can see more of this stuff. Thanks again, and have a good one.